Obviously there's something wrong with this door. I have to yank it to get it open. I have to shove real hard to get it closed. And that's because it's rubbing all along here up above the knob. You know, it could be that the hinge screws are loose. It doesn't seem like they're loose. So let's take a closer look. No, the hinge leaf is completely flush and the screws are totally tight. So, what to do? The uninformed method for fixing this door would be to get a block plane or a block of wood with a piece of heavy grit sandpaper on it and start grinding away at the edge of the door until it easily passes into the jamb. However, a close study of this door might reveal another method. Let's get it closed and take a look at the gap on either side. Now we know here this gap is tighter than tight because that's where it's rubbing. But as we look further down this knob edge of the door, we'll see that the gap grows wider near the bottom of the door to where it's at least a good fat 1/16 of an inch. And over here on the hinge side, aha, we see that the gap is a good 1/8 of an inch, maybe even 3/16. And as we look down the hinge edge of the door, we see that there's a gap closer to 1/8 of an inch just above the hinge, and as we go down below we see that it narrows down to where it's almost touching the jamb. This means that the top hinge has been warped or sprung. Now whether that occurred because of gravity or because of some kind of abuse, we'll never know. But what we do know, at least I do, and soon you will too, is that we can fix this by making a simple adjustment to the top hinge. To begin with, let's gather the tools we'll need. And that includes what we'll use to pull the pin out of the hinge. I prefer a pair of diagonal cutters, or dikes, along with a hammer. And then to adjust the hinge, we'll need a crescent wrench, 8 inches or bigger. And last of all, to get the hinge back together, a couple of small scraps of plywood. First off, we have to determine which side of the hinge is attached to the door. If we look where the knuckles blend into the hinge leaf, we see that the side with the 2 knuckles is attached to the door. Of course, it may be a little bit different on your door. You may have the 3 knuckle side attached to the door, but in this case, these are the 2 knuckles we are going to adjust. And in order to make that adjustment, we have to pull the pin out of the hinge. So we get the hammer and the dikes, grab the head of the hinge pin with the jaws of the dikes, cup upwards. Then tighten the handles to lift the cap, give it a little tap with your hammer. Once the pin pops up a ways, you can get a good bite, then up and out it goes. Ta-da! But watch out. Hinge pins are grimy. You don't want to mark up the door or the wall. Now I'm going to show you my best door trick. How to adjust or tweak a butt hinge. And for that we'll use our crescent wrench with the jaws adjusted so that they slip right over the hinge knuckles. There, that fits. Not too loose, not too tight. Now we slip the jaws of the crescent wrench over one of the knuckles that's attached to the door, making sure that the handle is bent toward the door, and we grab the handle firmly and we bend it toward the face of the door. But we don't go too far, only about a 1/16 of an inch. Then we move on down to the next knuckle and we bend that one the same amount. And do the same with the third knuckle if you've got one. Now we'll check to see whether we've done enough to cure our problem. To make our check, we have to join the hinge back together, and to do that, we need the plywood scraps and the hammer. So first we slip one scrap under the door, then we slip the other one under that one and give it a tap with the hammer. That creates a wedge effect, and up the door goes. Check back at our hinge and we see we're not quite there yet. We're going to need that third scrap I had in the bucket. We stick that one underneath the other two and tap that up. Whoop! Looks like I've gone just a little bit too far. So we're going to pull the bottom one out just a tweak. Now the hinge is perfectly married and I can put the pin right back inside of it. Alright, let's get the hinge back together in order to see if our adjustment has done the trick. To replace our pin, we turn the cup side of the dikes downward on the pin head. Then drive it in with a few taps from the hammer. But we never drive it all the way home. We don't do that until we know we're completely done with the job. Instead, we leave just enough poking out so that we can grab it again with the dikes. Now, before we open our door, we'd better pull out our plywood scraps. All right, now let's see what's going to happen. It works perfectly. We've fixed a sticking door by tweaking or adjusting our top hinge. And since the job is completely done, we're going to tap that pin all the way home. Congratulations to us. All right. Maybe yours doesn't work as well as mine does. Maybe it's binding a little at the hinges and you have to undo some of the adjustment. Maybe it's rubbing across the top where it never rubbed before and you have to do a little sanding. Whatever your problem, you'll find all the instructions you need by going to www.doortricks.com. Once you've downloaded a copy of my ebook Door Tricks, you'll never have to worry about how to fix a household door ever again. I promise.